Hi there, today I'll talk about inflammation. Now, what is inflammation? Inflammation is a response of vascularized tissue. Here, vascularized means the tissue which have blood supply that delivers leukocytes and molecules of host defense from the circulation to the site of infection and cell damage to eliminate the offending agent. Here, something we have to understand that leukocytes means neutrophils and macrophages, and molecules of host defense means other molecules of immune systems like complement, cytokines, chemokines, etc. Next, from the circulation to the site of infection and cell damage means from the blood vessels to the tissue. And in order to eliminate the offending agent means the agent or foreign substances like virus, bacteria which causes tissue damage. There are two types of inflammation, acute inflammation and chronic inflammation. As inflammation is a huge topic, I'm gonna talk about only on acute inflammation today. Suppose this is a tissue which is injured by an offending agent, for example bacteria. Due to tissue injury, the cells native to the tissue injury will release different kind of cytokines. Now what are the cells? These cells are mast cell, macrophage and endothelial cells. Macrophage will release interleukin 1 and tumor necrosis factor, and mast cell will secrete histamine, leukotrienes, and prostaglandins. Endothelial cells also become activated and synthesize and release leukotrienes and prostaglandins. These cytokines are the main mediators of acute inflammation. Let's come to the next step. Suppose it is a blood vessels adjacent to the tissue injury. The chemokines produced by macrophage and mast cell here act on it. First of all, histamine and prostaglandins cause vasodilation, mainly histamine. Then, due to this vasodilation, excess blood accumulates to this area. And due to this excessive blood, this inflamed area become red, means river, and hot, means color. Now come to the next step. The histamine, prostaglandins and leukotrienes, mainly histamine also here, increase vascular permeability. They do this by contraction of the endothelial cells. Due to this increased vascular permeability, the fluid and protein come from the circulation to the interstitial space. As a result, excessive fluid accumulate in the interstitial space, which form edema-like condition we called as tumor. As excessive fluid accumulate in the interstitial space, it will compress and stimulate the pain-sensitive nerve endings which present in the interstitial space. For this reason, we can feel pain at the time of any kind of inflammation. Here, pain means dolor. For all this mechanism, ultimate result is loss of function of these involved tissues or organ. So these five, river, color, tumor, dolor or pain, and at last loss of function are the cardinal features of acute inflammation. For better understanding the next step, let's go to the another picture. In this step, the stasis of blood flow occur. Now the question is, how this stasis happened? As I already discussed about increased vessel diameter and increased vascular permeability, there is loss of fluid and increased concentration of blood. As a result, this increased diameter of vessels and viscosity of blood leads to slowing down of blood flow. This condition is termed as stasis of blood. In normal blood flow, RBC confined to the central axial column of blood vessels and leukocyte peripherally. In stasis, more and more leukocytes assume peripheral position along the endothelial surface. This process is called margination. At the same time, as I told you before, macrophages release interleukin 1 and tumor necrosis factor. These two cytokines will activate endothelium of blood vessels. Now, what does it mean by activation of endothelium? Normally, endothelium contains some adhesive molecule, for example, selectin and ligands for integrin, such as VCAM, ICAM. These will be exposed over the endothelial surface. After the exposure to cytokines, interleukin 1 and tumor necrosis factor from the macrophage. This process is known as endothelial activation. Now, let's talk about selectin. There are three types of selectins: P-selectin, E-selectin and L-selectins. L-selectins found in leukocytes, E-selectin on endothelium, P-selectin on platelet and endothelium. It means endothelium contain E and P-selectin that will be expressed on endothelial surface. At the same time, ligands for selectins called sialyl oligosaccharides and integrins on leukocytes will expressed. Now, sialyl oligosaccharides bind with selectins, which is a low affinity interaction, means weak bonds. That will detach after some duration and again bind with another selectins with pathway of blood flow. This process, binding, detach, again bind and detach, make the neutrophil rolling along the endothelium of blood vessels. Next to it, the cells finally decide to come to rest at some point. At this point, the expressed integrins on leukocytes will bind with VCAM1 and ICAM1 of endothelium. VCAM means vascular cell adhesion molecule and ICAM means intercellular adhesion molecules. This VCAM and ICAM also remain stored in endothelium as like a selectin, but after exposure to cytokines, interleukin 1 and tumor necrosis factor, they become exposed over endothelial surface. Binding of integrins of leukocytes and VCAM or ICAM of endothelium cause firm adhesion of leukocytes with endothelium, as it is a high affinity interaction, means strong bond. Next step is the process of migration of leukocytes through the endothelium. You can say it as transmigration or diapedesis. In this process, several adhesive molecules which are present on intracellular space work on it. These molecules are CD31 and PCAM1. Here, PCAM means platelet endothelial cell adhesion molecule. The leukocytes which are firmly attached by VCAM, ICAM, they will now bind with CD31 or PCAM1 of intracellular space. Gradually, leukocytes pierce the basement membrane and secrete collagenase, and thus enter into the tissue space. Then move towards the chemotactic agent, ultimately to the offending agent that caused this whole process. And finally, leukocytes phagocytes this pathogen. After phagocytosis, destruction or removal of the pathogenic substances, the 5 cardinal features of acute inflammation gradually resolves. That's all about the whole processes of acute inflammation. I hope you like this video. Thanks for watching.